Circular economy entrepreneurs are changing the shape of every industry, reframing how we think about, fund, and design entire systems. Accelerate is a primary way which we at GreenBiz spotlight these entrepreneurs. So here's how today's session is going to work. In just a few minutes, you'll be hearing from 4 entrepreneurs giving 2.5 minutes pitches, and you'll be hearing about their solutions. After which, our industry experts, April Crow from Circulate Capital and Francesca Whitehead from G2VP, will be giving their feedback on the pitches that you heard and how that fits into the industry. At the same time, you, the audience, will be voting on the winner of Accelerate at Circularity. So let's get started. First, I'd like to welcome Samantha Snabes from Re3D. She's enabling 3D printing from recycled materials. Welcome, Samantha.
So what if I told you that this coffee cup Don't Tell Waste Management I pulled out of the garbage in the back, and the lid for it could be ground up and repurposed to be the chair that you're sitting on now? This is just one real-world example that our customers and community are working on as we speak. Hi, I'm Samantha. I'm an Air Force reservist on the weekends, and during the week, I'm the co-founder and catalyst for Re3D, where we're addressing the 2 biggest barriers to 3D printing, and that's cost and scale. You see, when you go to buy a plastic printer, often you're limited to only producing things you're going to throw away. No one here in this room wants that. On the other end of the spectrum, there are industrial systems, but they can be cost prohibitive, starting at $100K or more. This leaves a $37 billion market opportunity. Enter Gigabot. It's our flagship technology that starts at 30 times the size of a desktop printer, but a fraction of the cost of the industrial equivalent because it's just under 10K. Gigabot is accompanied by a whole host of services we provide that do provide reoccurring revenue to help you go from ideation to print. Our customers span 50 countries, and they're problem solvers, opening up new markets as we speak. We're so honored to launch Gigabot on Kickstarter, where it was funded in 1 day and instantly in 23 countries. With the sales of both Gigabot and the services, as well as non-dilutive grants we've accomplished, we've been able to raise over $10 million in revenue and counting. What unites us is social responsibility. We have a 1 for 100 model, whereby we give away 1 printer for every 100 we deliver to someone trying to make a difference in their community. And that's led us to Circularity 22 and our ultimate vision, to power Gigabot by waste. That's right, trash. Seen here are 3 images taken from outside of our outpost in Puerto Rico, and it's the same wherever you hail from. By modifying Gigabot to directly print from plastic waste, we can unlock new and higher growth markets worldwide. We knew we could do this. We're a team with over 100 years of manufacturing experience, plus a cool dog mascot. Myself, I sold a previous company before meeting my co-founder at NASA. This is not just an idea. We are 3D printing directly from shredded garbage. We call it Gigabot X, and during the pandemic, we sold it in beta across 4 continents. The commercial version will come out this summer. This has also unlocked other strategic pilots using reclaimed materials with local municipalities, as well as strategic partners. And from this traction, we recently received over $1 million from the Puerto Rican Science and Research Trust, as well as the Department of Defense, to make off-grid shipping containers that have all the tools and hardware to directly print from plastic waste on-site for local impact. We now invite you to join the revolution. We want to hear your feedback, show off some cool prints we brought today, and to truly have an honest conversation about sustainable and locally driven manufacturing. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. All circularity people. I love it. And some black people in here too. We're going to be at the table. It's coming. It's coming. All right, let's go. My clock has started. Tell me, hurry up. So we have a bottled water company. We pay to have a bottled water return. And I built this company because I'm a business attorney that has a background in engineering from Michigan, go blue. And I was invited to a bottled water plant, and I noticed a couple things. 1, I noticed that bottled water can be made anywhere. And 2, if the bottles stay together, they can actually become bottles again. And that was my first introduction into what you now call circularity. I called it back then, duh. Like, you know, this is the point where, okay, if you make the bottles, you bring them back to the source, they can actually become bottles again. And so I worked with the engineers and I said, let's build micro plants in cities and let's focus in on a small area where people can buy the bottle, bring the bottle back, and drink it locally. And so from there, I've developed brands that are based upon some of the traits of not only my staff, but also my family. And I've used those brands to try to market circularity here in Atlanta. We've done pretty well. Positivity Alkaline Water here has now tripled in revenue over the last few years, all based upon circularity. Take your phones out, take a picture if you want to buy Positivity. If you're thirsty in Atlanta, it's your fault. So we've been doing well. And on the back end, we've been able to use this to talk to people and say, hey, you know what? Let's bring the bottles back. You know, we give them 20 cents. And we actually found a pretty good location here in Atlanta. Not only is this successful, it actually makes money, and we've convinced investors that, hey, we don't have to make top dollar, we just need to make enough money to win circularity and then, you know, feed our families. And I think it's working. So we're in Pittsburgh Yards off the Beltline, halfway between here and the airport. We've focused in on a 5-mile radius of customers, so we're not trying to sell to Savannah and Athens. We're really focusing in on Atlanta. And we're the most valuable bottle in Atlanta. Let that set in for a second. And we've had this touch point with water. We get to talk over and over again because it's not a one-time purchase. And from there, we're looking to build 5 more centers in Atlanta by 2025. Each center generates about $22 million in cost and then $10 million in revenue. So there's more than enough money for everybody in this process. Lastly, I need you to vote for us. This is actually going to do very good for the confidence in the Black community to know that I'm talking in front of the people who matter. Also, too, I need connections. So anybody in here who has any idea about the collection process and help me grow out the collection process, I know the front end process, but the back end process, I'm still very new to. So take a picture and contact us. And lastly, have a great time in Atlanta. This is a great town. It's a great place. Mayor Dickens is a good guy. And all of you are closed-minded, and we're all in this together. I'm Dave Walker. Thanks for having me.
All right, hello everybody. Can you hear me? All right. I guess I'll just wait. Oh, hi there everybody. My name is Mesbah. Pleasure being here. Thank you for having me, GreenBiz. We're from the Netherlands and we are bringing traceability to global supply chains. And my journey started about a decade ago when I met some professors at a university in the Netherlands who were introducing the circular economy model. I never looked back ever since, and this is one of the things that I did for my thesis about 6-7 years ago. I visited some recycling companies, in this case, particularly electronic recycling of flat screen monitors, and figured what are the problems that they're facing. And one of the problems was that they had no idea what they were recycling. They had no idea what was in that product in terms of materials, chemical composition, hazardous substances. So I was a bit naive, and I went to these brand owners who were manufacturing these things. I was like, why are you not telling us what's in there? Like, just print a bill of materials so we know. And the honest answer was, we don't know. And I was shocked. I was like, these companies are bringing these products to market, and they have no idea what's in there. But at the same time, they're making all these ambitious sustainability claims, but they don't even know what's in there. How can you not know what's in your products, not be able to communicate that, but at the same time have these ambitious goals? So without traceability and transparency, there is no circular economy. And if they do talk with their supply chains and understand where things come from, this is how they do it, right? So in a nutshell, what we're bringing is a digital product passport that can be attached to physical materials, from the raw material to parts and components to the final product, and allow that information to be carried forward. However, there is a lot of problems that you immediately see, like what about trust? What about confidentiality? So we've been working for years now to really solve all these problems and allow supply chains to have the right level of traceability and transparency without dealing with confidentiality problems, trust problems, etc. So this unlocks tremendous value in supply chains when it comes to tracing, understanding carbon emissions, Scope 3 emissions, as well as regulatory mitigations, and unlocks premiums on those supply chains that need it most. The way we're building it is a way we've forgotten in software, which is an open protocol. You don't have to use our system. Just the way you don't have to use a same email client if you're emailing somebody that uses a different client. It all works because it's built on open infrastructure. And we have a patent-pending technology that allows to make sure that companies do not share any information beyond what they're comfortable with. So we're working with global brands and suppliers across the world, and we're active in Europe, Japan, as well as the United States. So thank you.
92 million tons of textile waste are created every year. At Sortal, we are changing the landscape of textile recycling by developing solutions that make textile waste valuable. This is my home country of Chile. Textile waste is a global problem, and despite brands starting to demand recycled fibers, less than 1% of textile waste is actually used as recycled fibers. And while fiber-to-fiber recycling technology has improved significantly in recent years, the manual sorting process makes it economically unfeasible for sorters to sort by fiber composition, impeding them to scale fiber-to-fiber recycling. We're changing this by providing a low-cost technology that allows sorters to identify the fiber composition of an item in a fast and easy way. Instead of looking at clothing tags, you just place an item on our sensor and get an accurate identification. We're able to create both economic and social value. On the sorters front, we create a new revenue stream by allowing them to sell to fiber recyclers and decrease their disposal costs. On the industry side, we're able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by diverting textiles from landfills. Lastly, by changing the economics around recycling, you can really change collection incentives so that you collect all textiles and not simply those for the secondhand market. Our business model is based on recurring revenue from the licensing of our technology. We also charge a one-time installation fee, and we collect data on everything that we stored. So we use that data for consulting projects with industry stakeholders. We recently launched in August, but since then, we have 3 paid beta customers, including Goodwill. We've done 2 paid consulting projects and won $60,000 in grants. The results from our first pilot completely surpassed our expectations. We were able to triple the volume that we're processing and increased revenue per pound by 15%. And we're only just getting started. We began with fiber identification and sorting. We're launching a management system for sorters next month, and we want to include transparency tools for the industry. I'm privileged to be joined in this journey by Agustina and Florencia. I'm Constanza, co-founder and CEO of Sortal, and I'll just end by saying that we're currently raising our pre-seed round to build our team and bring our product to market. So thank you so much, and please reach out because I can't solve this alone, and so would be happy to have any conversations.
All right, well, thank you so much to all of our entrepreneurs, and we're so inspired by all of their pitches. So now it's time for you, the audience, to vote on who has the greatest potential to make an impact on the circular economy. So if you open your app, you might have to refresh if it's not showing, but you click more on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and then click on polls, and there'll be the 4 options to choose from. So the polls will be open for the next 8 or 9 minutes, and we'll be hearing from our industry experts next. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Francesca Whitehead, investor at G2VP, and April Crow, who's the VP of External Affairs and Investor Relations from Circulate Capital. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's wonderful to have you both here. Francesca, why don't we start with you? Can you give a quick intro of your background and how you work with startups at G2VP?
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to see everyone here. I'm Francesca Whitehead, investor at G2VP. Before joining G2VP, I was at the KKR Global Impact Fund, and I started my career in investment banking at Goldman Sachs. Quick overview on G2VP. We're a fund that spun out of Kleiner Perkins. We're now investing in our second fund. It's a $500 million fund. And what we focus on is investing behind the intersection of emerging technology, sustainability, and large additional industries.
Great. Thank you. And April, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you give a quick introduction?
Great. First of all, welcome to Atlanta. I'm in my hometown here. I know it's great to see so many familiar faces, and I look forward to meeting more. I am with Circulate Capital, which is an impact investment firm focused on circular economy. We launched in 2019, and we're unique in that our first fund is made up of funds from some large companies, global brands from Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dow, Unilever, P&G, and others. And we have started in Southeast Asia. The fund is actually based in Singapore. I'm here in Atlanta. Based on my background, I was with Coca-Cola for a number of years, leading a lot of the sustainable packaging and recycling work. We've made our first few investments in companies in India, Indonesia, and have now launched an innovation fund that is looking at how we bring more disruptive technologies to that region of the world to really drive circular economy.
Great, thank you so much. So Francesca, why don't we start with you? How do the startups that you saw today fit into the broader trends that you're seeing as an investor?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's very exciting about all these pitches and all the startups we are seeing is just the range of industries that are now starting to think about the circular economy. I think that's been a big shift in the last couple of years specifically as well. It's just that's becoming more and more mainstream. There are more and more people thinking about it. Every single industry is starting to pay attention. And it's just seen as a very real way of addressing sustainability. And specifically with these startups as well, is that every single step of the value chain needs to have some change for us to actually achieve circularity or sustainability broadly too. And they were touching many different parts of that value chain with different business models.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we had these startups pitching today, because they do kind of sit across the value chain in different industries. We're really seeing that with all the startups that we're seeing at GreenBiz, and I'm sure as an investor as well.
Yeah.
And April, what about you? How does this fit into the broad trends you're seeing? You know, I know that you were at Coca-Cola before this, and then working with several corporates at Circularity Capital now. How is that fitting into what you're seeing?
I think what was interesting in what we saw today was, first of all, the diversity of ideas and the different sectors that they touch. But also, I noticed even in the first two, it's almost stepping back to look at where we've come from as a society and how we have moved to global supply chains. And they're looking at it in a unique way of making things more local again, but in a new way. And I think that's what we have to continue to look at. We've seen some that are more incremental in the opportunities that we're funding, but we know that we really have to move to some of these more disruptive technologies and transparency, which was also some of the themes that we heard in the pitches today.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you talk a little bit more? You talked about the different funds and how you started and where you're going now. April, can you talk a little about how you would work with the startups, or say you were to fund some of the startups today? What does that look like with Circularity Capital?
Yeah, and I think we are a little bit unique in that the funders that I mentioned did not just provide financial resources. They're actually providing technical knowledge. We have resources that can help the companies in their startup environment by bringing both business knowledge, looking at specifications if they're making recycled PET or recycled materials, working with someone within some of the large brand owners and the resources that they have to then help them understand how they might be able to deliver the quality that's needed for some of these large brands. So when we start to look at how we can scale these different businesses, they're able to get that hands-on information directly from some of the people that will be buying their end products.
Yeah, absolutely. And Francesca, what stood out to you today from these pitches that we heard from?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. They were all great pitches. And truly the one thing that did stand out was just like how unique and how much technology is being applied to some of these very important issues. I feel like there are lots of different ways technology can be used, and using them for good in this regard is something that's what I've spent my career doing. And so I'm glad to see that it's becoming more and more of a mainstream focus for people. And for myself personally, I really like thinking about the textile value chain. And so that's my little plug there.
Great. And April, what about you? What stood out to you today?
Yeah, you know, what struck me is how do we use this opportunity? First of all, kudos to GreenBiz for just creating this platform, because I will say even the bottled water company here in Atlanta, as I said, I'm here in Atlanta, I had not heard of them until it was presented. So, you know, how do we leverage this network to really go back to looking at how we can advance some of these? We've been talking about circular economy for a long time. We heard from Aaron previously about just the opportunity now that we have this global treaty. How do we leverage this network and others really to advance? I think any of these could be really impactful as startups.
Absolutely. And they all came at it from different angles. It's the community angle, the materials angle, kind of every single aspect. So it's really exciting to see that. Just a reminder for you all, the polls are closing in just about a minute. So if you can get in your last votes, and we'll kind of get to the last questions here. So Francesca, maybe starting with you again, if you could choose one startup that were to get your vote, who would that be?
I think it was already implied with my answer before. And part of it is just when I think about the textile value chain, I think a lot of people don't realize how little clothing is actually recycled. And so it's just something I find really interesting myself. And That's what I like thinking about. And specifically as well, being able to understand what's in clothing, because so much of it is a blend. And that's part of the challenge of being able to recycle it. And sorting is also difficult. And so kind of having any tools that are able to help with that is very valuable.
Yeah, fantastic. And April, what about you? Who would get your vote?
Yeah, I have so many questions that I want to ask each of them, as I'm sure everyone here in the audience does as well. As I said, it's really difficult to pick one. I think if we look at it from a potential impact perspective, I would lean a little bit towards that one as well. But I think the transparency piece and being able to provide information that help inform so many of the other types of investments that need to come forward and different companies that we need to advance. I'm taking a cop out here and not choosing just one, but a lot of opportunities there. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we do have our winner. So we will be announcing the winner, and the winner is Sortile. Great. So thank you all so much for voting, for participating today. Thank you to our wonderful panelists for joining us, Francesca and April. Thank you again to Cox Enterprises, our sponsor for this event. And thank you especially to all of the entrepreneurs who pitched today and for dedicating their work to these circular economy solutions.
And thank you to Greenbiz for bringing us all together.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone.